So, are generic drugs tainted and are they safe for you? Okay, now, Belinda here. And as you know, I always like to do my own research and I encourage my clients and people who follow me on social media to do their own research when it comes to this. But this is something that I am guilty of, and I'll admit that openly, okay? Because I always, you go to the pharmacy and you assume that whatever the doctor has prescribed you is fine in the brand name item or the generic item. They literally tell you that at the pharmacy. Yes, it's the same, it's fine, and I'm guilty of saying, yep, I'll just go with the generic one, it's cheaper. What's the difference? Anyway, apparently there may be a difference. Now, you are learning about this the same time I am. I have literally just got off a webinar with a medical doctor that I actually follow. And he has just done an interview with a investigative journalist in the US, and she's written for things like Fortune magazine, and I'm just reading her bio here. And she's actually written a book. And she's just released the book, and it's called Bottle of Lies. And she has done a huge investigative research on generic drugs and the generic drug supply chain, okay? And her name is Catherine Eben. And one thing she mentioned on this webinar, which really blew my mind, was apparently a lot of generic drugs are actually made in like India or China or somewhere cheaper, obviously, because labor's cheaper and it's cheaper to make these drugs and pharmaceuticals, right? And what she says is what actually happens is these companies, which are creating the generic drugs in these countries, are actually bringing in the brand name drug in suitcases so that they can test them and use the test results for that to sell their generic brand drugs. Okay, so they're obviously going to use the higher quality, brand name drugs to use that reports to sell their generic brand drugs. And how do you know if the generic brand that you're buying from the pharmacy, is the real deal? Like, how do you know that? How can you do your own research on that? It's pretty bloody scary, wouldn't you agree? Like, my mind has just been blown right now. Like, I'm usually open to these things, but oh my gosh, what if the drugs that you're taking aren't actually helping your situation? Like, it's pretty scary. And you know that I am all for natural health and trying to get off the drugs. I managed to get off the drugs myself for my own autoimmune condition, right? But what if there are things out there that are, like she spoke about patients with heart conditions and how, they were prescribed a drug that's supposed to help their heart condition, and then they ended up back at the doctor's surgery months later with the same condition and the same problem because the generic drug that they were taking was not helping their condition the way it was supposed to be because they weren't getting the one that they needed. Like, that can be really scary. You need your heart to be in a good place. You really do. So that can be really scary. So apparently you've even got to research the generic drugs that we have been given. It's pretty scary if that's the way that we're going to go. And they're talking about, all these generic drugs have been approved by the FDA and the TGA here in Australia. And, they're not following up and making sure that what comes in that box, what says comes in that box actually comes in that box. Like, that is scary, especially when people's lives and people's healths are being held in the bounds. Like, it's not okay. Okay, so if you want to look up this lady, her name is Catherine Eben, and she's written a book called Bottle of Lies. I am about to go and find this book for myself so I can do my own research, like I want to encourage you guys to do your own research on this, okay? And yeah, I'm sure it's a fascinating read. The doctor who was interviewing her, he said he'd read this book 3 times now, over and over again. He had read it or listened to it on Audibles, got it on the Audible edition, and listened to it 3 times because it was blowing his mind, and he is a medical doctor. So what is that saying? Pretty scary. Anyway, Yeah, I hope you found this information interesting, and I can, if you want me to, I can link up this webinar down below and you can listen to her and this doctor yourself. But yeah, anyway, I'll talk to you this time tomorrow. Bye.